Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Running Tales podcast here on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. As you'll know by now, we are one of 9 different shows on this fantastic network. So please have a listen to all of the different shows on there. There's a vast variety of stuff, loads of running stories, a bit of comedy and capers on what's in your earbuds and Food Fight Friday and just loads and loads of good stuff. So do have a listen to everything, and share it all around because there's some great stuff on this network and it's well worth catching up on. Running Tales, we're on Substack as well. Please check us out there for our newsletter, runningtales.substack.com. So anyway, I want to move on quickly to this week's guest. We have Delaney Dawson this week. Delaney is a runner, a coach, and a 5K Your Way ambassador. And she has a really fantastic story. Plenty of setbacks along the way, but she's come through them all. So, folks, let's without further ado bring Delaney forward and find out a little bit about her running tale. Hi, Delaney. How are you doing?
Hey, Craig. I'm good, thank you, and thank you for having me on the podcast today.
Oh, no, thank you so much for joining us. We will, at some point in this, explain a bit more about exactly what 5K Your Way is, because we have a little bit of an international audience. And while I think people around the UK will know, some of our other listeners and watchers might not. But I want to start with your story and really rewind the clock all the way back to school, because I know that you love running right from the start, almost, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right, Craig. As a child in primary school, I just absolutely loved running. That was when I first really got involved in running at any distance. So it would be like school cross country championships and things like that. And then I carried on through secondary school. School sports day, nobody wanted to do the distances like 1,500 meters and things like that. So I just loved it. That was me every year. Every opportunity I got, I was out there running, and I just seemed to kind of find my own rhythm and really like enjoy being kind of in my own head, but running, and just loved every minute of it.
It's really interesting, actually, because I speak to so many people on here who found running later in life, and will talk about their time running at school, a little bit like you spoke about your classmates. Oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
It's a punishment and that sort of thing. Was there something in your family or your background that made you a little bit different, or was it just clicked that switch?
I think there were a couple of things. So firstly, I just really enjoyed it. So I think I sort of naturally settled into that. It was the sport that suited me. And then secondly, it was my uncle running the London Marathon, and he ran it, I think, 4 times so it would have been early 1990s. So I was probably about 9 or 10 the first time. And I just loved everything about the London Marathon experience and the marathon weekend, and family traveling down from Yorkshire, and just it was an amazing experience as a child of that age to go and spectate at the London Marathon. It wasn't as busy as it is now, but it was still a huge event, and I would spectate with my auntie, so his sister, and she had been working out in Houston, and she had this sort of Houston combined with Barnsley accent, and was really, really vocal at the London Marathon, supporting everyone, to the point where people would make space, move away from us because she was so loud. And I guess I got my enthusiasm there from just absorbing the atmosphere and being with her. And I've got so many really fond memories of London Marathon weekends. And obviously as well, I was like super proud of my uncle, because he always had a lot of challenges with asthma and things like that. He never let it stop him. And ran something like 10 marathons, I think. I mean, he doesn't run anymore. He's into his 80s, but he's still active. But that was always a really big kind of inspiration for me, like standing there, seeing all these amazing athletes running by. I just said, I want to do that, and I want to do it like as soon as I'm old enough. So that was always my goal, was to, as a child, to get into the London Marathon.
Yeah, well, I know that you did go on and do a fair few marathons. I'm assuming then that London was one of those.
Yeah, I've done London a couple of times. The first time it was kind of exactly how not to do a marathon, I would say. So I was 19. My dad had entered it with me because my mum had basically made him, said, you know, you can't have run on her own. You're gonna have to go with her. So we did it together, which was a great experience. But being, you know, an overconfident 19-year-old, I didn't do anywhere near the amount of training that it requires. And so rocked up, and we had a really good first half. But then the wheels came off, and we were sort of reduced to walking from about halfway. So that obviously meant for a very long second half of the marathon. But it was a great experience nonetheless. And I do remember saying to my dad about halfway, when I was needing to walk, saying to him, you know, you carry on, Dad. You know, we're on for a really good time here. You can get a good time. You carry on. And he said to me, "Are you joking? Your mother would kill me." So he stayed with me the whole time. And I remember coming round the corner on Mall and seeing the finish line, and then that's when I just sort of broke into a sprint, and my poor dad was trying to keep up with me. Then having, you know,
you left him behind after he
I didn't mean to, but yeah, but no, it was still a great experience, but also a learning experience, obviously, to take into other marathons after that.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things, isn't it? It's just incredible learning experience running generally, but definitely a marathon. I'm not sure there's too many people, unless they were a pretty serious runner already, who get it right the first time. I certainly didn't, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's generally a little bit of walking involved along the way. But you did go on and do lots and lots of other running as you got a little bit older, didn't you? And I think there was 4 marathons at that stage before kind of the first setback that we'll talk about in a little bit. But tell me a bit about some of the running you did when you were younger.
Yeah, so I did I did 7 marathons, but I also did other events. But I loved going abroad to do marathons as well. I loved the whole being part of a group. So I had a group of friends who I would train with. Like every Sunday, we were out doing long runs, and we would go on group holidays together where there'd be, you know, one or more of us running a marathon. So I did, as well as doing London, I also did Paris, Barcelona, Chicago, and I've done the Brighton Marathon twice as well. So yeah, quite a range of experiences there, and I've been to support people in various other cities, you know, around the world. So great experiences all round. I think it's a brilliant way to see a city, is to go and do a big race there. And yeah, just great experiences with friends, and you do, you know, it's like you go on long runs, you do make good friends because you spend a lot of time with them, and you help each other through it. And you know, those people will always be good friends to me, all those people that I used to train with.
Yeah, what was your favorite one?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, what I would say is, if anybody's only going to do one marathon and you get the opportunity, I think London, just for the atmosphere, is absolutely, it's so special. That's the one to do. Not necessarily for a good time, but to have a good time. That's the one that for me is the pinnacle of it. Chicago, though, what a great experience that was. Chicago's a great city as well. So I, again, just really enjoyed that. And the Americans know how to really put on a party, and how to cheer people on. So that was great. And yeah, there were some funny signs around that one. There were, yeah, that was quite entertaining. There was an election coming. It was 2016. There was an election coming up. So yeah, quite entertaining, running around reading all the signs along the way.
Oh, fantastic! No, my wife's done far more marathons than me, and she did London a couple of years ago and loved it. But and is absolutely desperate to do Chicago. I know that, so she'll be jealous. But yeah, her personal favourite was another one you mentioned there, with Barcelona, which I think is a pretty special one too, isn't it?
Yeah, that was great, actually, Barcelona. I remember getting to the start area quite early there, because that's what I was used to from other big city events. And most people kind of turned up about 15 minutes before the run was due to start. So, but yeah, it's a great city anyway, Barcelona, and you do get to run around all the best parts of it. So it was an interesting city to run around, and it's always going to be special to me because that's where I got my PB. So yeah, of course I'm going to love that one.
Yeah, and you were, as well as doing all these marathons, I think you moved on and did a few ultra races as well.
No, I never got to actually complete an ultra. So this was the thing. I was training for an ultra when I picked up quite a bad injury. In fact, I was training for two. It was just before I was due to take part in Endure 24. And then I was training for a solo ultra that I was supposed to be doing a few months after that, when I then picked up the injury. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, let's move on to that then. Let's talk about the injury that you picked up at that point, because as you said, it was, I mean, I think quite serious. Probably doesn't do it justice, really, does it? It was. I mean, that people were almost saying you're not going to be running again, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. So I had an injury to my back, and it took a while to actually get a diagnosis for it, because the pain was actually in my feet, first one foot and then the other as well. So it was originally diagnosed as a stress fracture, and then it was thought to be actually tendon damage in my foot, and then an MRI showed no sort of mechanical damage to my feet at all. So further MRI then showed actually the damage was in my back, and one of the discs was quite badly damaged in my back, and that's why it had been pushing on the nerve, which was causing the pain in my feet. And the physio who I'd seen over the years for various different running injuries, who'd always been really good at getting me back running and understanding the importance of running to somebody whose lifestyle is based around that. He actually said to me, I think your days of running long distances are over now. He said, if you work at this, you might be able to get back to doing perhaps the occasional 5K, but just on soft ground, and not running as often or anywhere near as far. So yeah, that was the injury. That was by the time I think the pain in the feet started in June or July, around that time of 2019, and it took till about end of October to get that diagnosis.
Yeah. And I know that it took you a little while to go through recovery and rehab to get back from that. How incredible was it when you managed to get back? I think it was by 2021 September by this point that you came back and you managed to do a 10K race, and on the trails as well, because everyone likes to make it a little bit more difficult, and you managed to do that. That must have felt amazing at that point.
It was incredible, because I for a long time I didn't think I'd be able to do anything like that, and I'd gone through all the sort of grief of thinking I wouldn't be able to run again or run as much. And running's always been my thing, my kind of go-to thing to clear my head. It's how I would handle tough situations. Is generally I would go out for a run to kind of process things, get my head clear, and things like that. And it's also been a part of my identity, really, as a runner. It's what I do. It's what people know me for, and a big part of my life. I mentioned earlier the friendships you make when you're out running with people. So I really missed all of that. I'd still been in touch with the local running community, because I still carried on volunteering, and that was massive for me. But then to be out and to be running again, and not just that, but to complete a 10K, having been told, well, you'll probably not be able to do more than 5K if you can run. There was just something about that felt really good to and I think I was smiling all the way around that 10K trail race. It was really hilly, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I was so pleased, obviously, to be able to finish that, come away with the medal, and feeling like I could run more. So it wasn't like I finished and thought, oh, I've got a few aches, a few pains there. I'm not sure about, whether this was the right thing to do. I felt fine from all the rehab that I'd done on my back. I actually felt like I could do more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just thinking back to what you said earlier about when you first started to get into running, with watching your uncle and being so impressed with how he sort of overcame difficulties facing his asthma and so on. Was that in the back of your mind when you were having your own recovery? I mean, they're not obviously not the same thing, but it just strikes me as you'd seen somebody be able to overcome obstacles and succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just seeing him do it, but he's always been super supportive to all of us in the family, and say, you can do what you want to do, and always been really full of encouragement for us to go out and try and do the things that we want to do. So yeah, absolutely. And I've always had a lot of support from my family generally, because they were so used to going out and cheering my uncle on, that
Yeah.
it's natural that when I started running, they've been really supportive of me as well. And some of my family have traipsed all over the place, coming to cheer me on at races and things like that. So I had a lot of encouragement, to keep to try and keep running, basically. So yeah, absolutely, my uncle was my inspiration, but it was nice to have a lot of people wanting me to get back into it and wanting it to work out well.
So here we are. We're in September 2021. You've overcome this back injury. You're back running again. Running is a massive part of your identity. Your family are following you around the world, watching you do these races every now and again. And it's kind of like, I'm going to go on. I felt like I can do more. And then two weeks later, you were diagnosed with breast cancer, which just must have. I mean, I try to sort of frame it in terms of running, but where it must have been devastating. But that's just got to be devastating, full stop, I suppose.
Yeah, it was a complete shock, because I didn't feel ill. So I went to the doctor and I went for the tests, because I found a lump when I was showering. But I didn't feel ill. If anything, I felt like I was getting stronger coming back from the back injury and things. I was getting fitter. I felt strong. And I have a relatively healthy lifestyle. So I was, yeah, it was a complete shock, and it was absolutely devastating. And also not knowing at first how bad it was or what the treatment plan would be, because there was about a month of different tests and conversations with different doctors and the sort of multidisciplinary team that was looking at it, and more scans and things. And at one point there was a concern that it may have already spread. So there was obviously a lot of a lot of stress. It was a very emotional time. It's very hard having those conversations with your loved ones around that. There's so much around it, and also not knowing what's going to happen to you, not knowing what the treatment's going to be like, not knowing if you're going to still be able to do the things you enjoy and the things you rely upon, like work, after all of that treatment and things. So yeah, it was a big unknown, and massive amounts of stress and anxiety.
Yeah, well, I can only imagine, really. But I guess the thing is when you get that initial diagnosis, it's natural to sort of assume the worst. And when you're thinking of the inverted commas best, you're still thinking of, or the treatment is awful as well, isn't it? Potentially chemotherapy and so on. It's not a short recovery. So, I suppose, to bring it back to running, I'm guessing at that point, running is probably the first thing from your mind, really.
I don't know, because I've always relied on running to help me as much with my mental health and my physical well-being, everything. I kept on running during that time of diagnosis and planning the treatment. Hadn't told a lot of people then, so even friends in my running club, most of them didn't know. And park run and things like that, I was running, and people had no idea, and it felt a bit strange to be running thinking, how can I have such a serious illness here, when I can go out and run and I feel okay. It was very surreal. And then I found out my treatment plan, and my questions to the doctors at the different stages were, when can I run again? So, I had surgery and I was starting chemotherapy a month later, but I managed to get a run in before I started chemo because I didn't know whether or not I'd be able to run. I asked the chemo doctor, can I run while I'm on this? And he was great. He said, yes, if you feel okay, but bear in mind your body won't recover like it normally does, so don't do anything intensive. Just keep it really, really gentle. And I actually managed to run a little bit while I was on chemo. I managed to at least walk every day. So my approach to the whole thing was, I'm just going to see how I feel each day. I'm going to do what I can when I can. Some days it's a walk around the block, other days it's a 5-mile run. That, for me, that was good enough. That was great. It was more than I'd expected to do. So I just kind of kept going like that, really. And then there came a point where the treatment had basically affected my heart. So I was advised to stop doing anything that got my heart rate up. And that's when it got really hard, because the way that I'd always sort of reduce stress and fast was going out running. And obviously I wasn't able to do that. But it wasn't very long until that settled down. And I got through the rest of the sort of active treatment, the rest of the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy. And then I was able to start running again. So again, I was sort of starting again. But the privilege you feel of being able to run when you've been through all of that, it's just incredible. And it was always there in my mind that, it is part of my identity. It's what I do. I want to get back running as quickly as I can,
Yeah, and I suppose when you're going through that, having something like running there as a goal, as a final aim, I'm sure there were others as well, but having that there to sort of spur you on, it has that power, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There were, and it was all about that joy of running for me. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to get better and I'm going to do this, crazy ultra marathon or anything. Like, as an example, one of the things that I wanted to do was Fountains Abbey Park Run, because I'd been to Fountains Abbey, I'd loved it, but I'd never done the park run there. So I remember being on the phone to my auntie, who's a volunteer at her local park run, and saying, when I'm better and when we can meet up again, can we do this? You can volunteer and I'll run it. And that was one of our goals, and we did go on to do that as well. And it was just really special to be able to go and do that.
Yeah, and park run, as it does for so many people, either who are starting out in the sport or starting to get fit, and also recovering from various illnesses, started to play, I suppose, more and more of a role for you, to the point where you then discovered or became more involved with 5K Your Way. Before we talk too much about that, do you want to perhaps just explain to people who might not know exactly what 5K Your Way is and how it all works for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So 5K Your Way is an initiative that is promoted by the Move Against Cancer charity in the UK. And there are groups of 5K Your Way ambassadors at, I think it's just over 100 different events now. And we meet at the last park run of the month at those locations. And we're there basically to encourage anybody whose life has been affected by cancer to come out, whether they want to walk, run, volunteer, cheer people on, or just join us for a coffee after the park run. It's all about just coming and taking part and doing what suits you at the time. There's no commitment to it. It's completely free. And the ambassadors, the other people there, all understand cancer. So we all understand that although we have, everybody has a unique experience on their cancer journeys, there's a lot of shared experiences as well, a lot of things that people can relate to. So so that's what we do. We encourage people to come out and take part, and they're just really friendly groups. And you might think like a cancer support group sounds quite depressing, right? And I have been to other support groups, but the real difference with this is it is actually quite uplifting, because it's people coming out and doing what they can despite their experiences of cancer. So, and it's a brilliant way as well of making friends in the cancer community and other people who kind of understand a bit more what you're going through.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I really like about it is, I mean, it's kind of the same with parkrun anyway. But most people who turn up for parkrun will probably do the 5K, even if they have to walk it. But I know a big thing with 5K your way is it's like, if you can do 1K, 2K, 3K, whatever you can do on the day, that's what you're doing, and we'll cheer you all the way to do it. And I've seen so many people recovering from cancer, with cancer, do things that at that stage of their life they just couldn't imagine themselves possibly doing, and it's really quite a joyful thing to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really, for me, it really suited kind of, because it really kind of aligned with my own experiences and my own attitude of, right, I'm not going to think myself into feeling ill. I'm going to do what I can when I can, and that's what 5K Your Way is about. And yet every month, I'm an ambassador for the non-such group. Every month we have people there, some who walk the whole thing, some who walk part of it, some who run, some who volunteer. We really do have people doing a bit of everything, and it really does work. And whatever you're doing within the group, you get a really big cheer and loads of support from the parkrun team as well. They've, parkrun core team have been really supportive, and the other park runners there. So there's no, we get a common question about, oh, can I really walk at a park run? But it's called park run. And I know Parkrun have, made a real effort to sort of promote the Park Walk initiative. But really, honestly, at 5K Your Way, it is totally fine to walk, and it's totally fine to walk part of the course, not feel that you've got to do the full 5K.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Park walk always makes me laugh slightly. Maybe I'm not I don't know. All the park runs I went to, people would walk and who wanted to walk anyway. But I suppose there's people from outside who sort of look at it and maybe don't feel that's the thing simply because of the name. But I suppose it was, inverted commas, legitimizing something that was always part of park run anyway. So
yeah, I think so. But I think those close to park runs knew that it was okay. It was always kind of acceptable to walk at park runs. Now it's encouraged. I think that's the difference to the people who aren't as familiar or aren't as confident. It does actually make a difference knowing that it's encouraged, and there will be other people walking.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And so with 5K Your Way, as you were going through your recovery, was that something you naturally fell into, or did you have were you a little bit encouraged to give it a go?
No, I'd seen the group starting up at Non-Such Parkrun, so I was already on the core team of the parkrun there, and I'm one of the run directors. And I'd seen the group starting up in July 2021. So obviously that was only a few months before I then got my diagnosis. So it was quite a natural thing then, having seen it and thought, oh, that's a great thing. And then unfortunately, kind of qualifying a few months later, it was a natural thing for me to then join that group. And I very quickly then became an ambassador, not long after joining, because it also helped with having links into the parkrun core team as well.
Yeah, was that a natural thing for you to go on and become an ambassador? Because presumably at that stage you were having a lot of things to concentrate on in your life, a lot going on in your head, and an ambassador's role is well, I suppose it works one of two ways. It's either something else on top of everything else, or it's a nice release.
Yeah, I mean, it was more the latter, really. It was something positive. It was, it's something that is really aligned to my values, and I like volunteering anyway. So, you know, obviously volunteering with the park run was something that was used to. I volunteer with my running club. I enjoy volunteering, so it was something that I was naturally interested in. There was the opportunity there, and it doesn't take up a massive amount of time. So it was a nice distraction without being too much of a burden.
Yeah, because I suppose for those who don't know, the kind of the work, inverted commas, of putting on a park run comes down to the core park run team, rather than yourselves at 5K Your Way. You're, for want of a better phrase, piggybacking on the onto park run to add this extra element to it. Obviously, you've talked about how it's helped yourself, how it helps yourself, but also you must have seen some pretty incredible stories of other people battling cancer who were in remission and so on, coming along and benefiting from doing park run and from doing 5K Your Way.
Yeah, absolutely. There are just so many inspiring stories, and I really mean that, because what you find when talking about people on a cancer journey is quite often we're spoken of as being brave or inspiring just for going through cancer treatment, and that can be quite a lot of pressure to try and be like that. But actually, I've met some people who are genuinely inspiring for what they have gone on to do, you know, irrespective, or sort of, you know, over and above the treatment that they've been through, despite all of that, gone on to do incredible things. And that, yeah, there's people with different types of cancer, different stages. Could be somebody who ran the London Marathon whilst going through chemo. It could be somebody who was never a runner before and living with cancer came and just improved their park run time, started walking, but then came back week after week and was running and improved their times. You know, there's all sorts of stories and experiences, and it's just, like I say, it's quite uplifting. But also, it's not all even about cancer. It's just nice to have a group that gets together and you just make friends with people. And actually, a lot of it is talking like any conversation with your friends. You end up, you know, talking about all sorts of other things as well.
Well, I think looking from the outside in, that's one of the things that's really clear. You mentioned earlier about, you know, it's a cancer support group, so people might be thinking it's a bit depressing, but it's not. I think one of the big strengths of 5K Your Way, or certainly the ones I've seen, is that most of the time cancer's barely mentioned. It's a load of people who have cancer who talk about everything else that they can get away from everybody asking them about blooming cancer all the time.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. Yeah, we, like anybody else, we talk about holidays and TV programs and, you know, nice food and, you know, things like that. We just have normal conversations. Just, I guess it's just that we've got that shared understanding of anything where those things might be affected by cancer treatment. But the other thing is, there are sometimes there's occasions where we get the groups together. Different 5K Your Way groups have a meetup. So like World Cancer Day, we did that last year at Bushy Park Run, and this year there were different locations. I went on a Battersea Park Run, and it's just even more uplifting when you get the groups together. There's a real buzz about it. It's a really positive thing, and really nice to just connect with even more people. So it's nice that, again, with 5K Your Way, that, you know, without that we wouldn't have all come together. We wouldn't have had those experiences.
And I guess just to, I mean, I think you said this, but to reiterate it and underline it for anyone listening, there's kind of no pressure around it. It's quite literally just turn up, say hello to people, and do whatever you can do on the day at Park Run.
Yeah, absolutely. And that really works, particularly for those who are going through treatment or had treatment where it can cause side effects that, you know, you are sometimes unpredictable, or where, you know, with your treatment that there are some days where you feel okay and can go out and do things, and other days where you don't feel up to it. So it's really suited in that respect, that there is no commitment. You come and you turn up when it suits you, and you do what works for you. So it is really, really flexible in that way.
Yeah. And going back to your own story, how helpful to you was it to have something to focus on, to be able to keep running, and to have this as part of your recovery?
Yeah, it was massive. I mean, I think being a runner helped me anyway. So being physically fit helped me with going through the treatment. There was also this resilience that I'd learned as a runner that was really, really, I think, helpful going through the treatment. I think that resilience was, having that as a skill really, really helped going through the tough times of treatment. The running community is just brilliant. I mean, you know yourself, Craig, the running community really does support people. So I had great support from people at Park Run, especially the guys on the core team at Nonsuch. They were amazing, and in my running club, Epsom All Sorts, really, really supportive. So it was a massive part of me getting through the worst of the treatment and of my ongoing recovery, and a real incentive that actually, I want to go on, and I want to keep enjoying my running and see what adventures I can find out there that involve a bit of running.
Yeah, because the good news at the end of all of this, obviously, is that your cancer was curable, it was treatable, and you finished that treatment, I think, in June 2022, and you've gone on to kind of do a few more events along the way, which we'll touch on in a minute. But I just wonder, like, the whole journey of those kind of, I'm not exactly sure, I'm trying to get my head around what it was, 3 or 4 years in your life, which must have been pretty, from the back injury to then having the cancer diagnosis straight afterwards, and so many doubts about, potentially it's because it's natural, about what you might be able to do, to finally get to the end of that journey must have just been unbelievable for you.
Yeah, it was huge, and you know, there'd been obviously the pandemic in the middle of that as well.
Yeah.
So on a global scale, there've been that sort of thrown into the mix. I think at the time when I sort of finished the active treatment, I'd been through so much. My body was so sort of battered from that treatment that I didn't really think about almost kind of what I'd gone through. I was still taking things day by day, and I'm still on ongoing treatment to reduce the risk of recurrence.
Yeah.
And that has quite a big effect. There are side effects of that, and there are permanent side effects of the treatment that I've had. So I was still in this routine of taking each day as it comes, and I've never really gotten out of that. So I didn't really have this big moment where I thought, right, that's done, now I can move on. It's just gradually I've got used to which things I have been able to recover from, and which things I'm now living with in terms of all those side effects. And I've learned more about how to live with those, what I can do to help myself. As an example, there was a cognitive impact from the treatment that I've had. So I've had to kind of relearn how to organize myself and my time, and kind of work slightly differently and things like that. It's not all just the physical impact, but it's been more of a gradual thing rather than right now I'm over that and I can move on. And obviously then there are sort of milestones along the way where you look back and think, yeah, that was quite a pivotal moment.
Do you and I know people don't like being asked this kind of question about themselves, but are you able, with the fact that it wasn't perhaps that one moment, are you able to look back on that journey and sort of think, wow, I did that, and actually sort of be proud of yourself, because you should?
Thank you. I don't know. It still feels very surreal. I think that's the difficulty with it. And I think because I still take things day by day, it makes it quite hard. It's still, when I think what I went through in that sort of 9 months from diagnosis, particularly, It's still in a way I can't believe it. But yeah, I'm proud of the things that I have achieved since then. Yeah, I guess when I can look back and go, oh yeah, I did do that after that, I did do that. Yeah, I am proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's move away from that slightly embarrassing question and talk about some of the things you have done, because after after coming and finishing your treatment and so on, you decided to head off to another place abroad, and that was Reykjavik, and that was kind of your big. I know. I mean, it sounds probably wrong to say it was a big comeback race and run, because you'd obviously kept running, but that was a bit of a marker in the sand, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was huge. It was a really big thing. It was something that I'd sort of put out there as, this is something that I'm going to do, without really knowing if I could, which kind of made it more exciting. Yeah, so I did the Midnight Sun half marathon in Reykjavik, which actually turned out to be more like the Midnight Rain and Wind half marathon. It was atrocious conditions. I went with a friend and Michelle from my running club, and stayed with a couple who are her friends. She'd grown up with this lady, and it was her and her fiance who were our hosts basically for our time in Reykjavik, and they were incredible and super supportive. And Michelle, Karen, and myself ran together, so it was really great for them to support me all the way around. I was having one of those days where with treatment and every step, and like I say, the weather was atrocious and it was a real struggle, but I did it. I even managed to pick up the pace a bit for the last couple of miles, so I was really pleased with how I ran it. And just to get to the finish line of something like that. And I'd been raising money for the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity, which is the hospital where I'd had my treatment. So there was a lot to motivate me for that one. And then in the days after that, we went on to have the most amazing road trip around Iceland. And that, I think, just really kind of switched something on in my brain. That was almost like resetting. It was a real sort of transformative moment to kind of reset, and then think about what I wanted to then do next once I'd reached that milestone of that half marathon out there.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about what you're doing next, because it involves more travel and obviously more running. But I did have one other quick question, which I think is like, since your double comeback, as it were, you're doing great and running, but you're not perhaps as quick as you were beforehand, and that's changed your. I think that's correct to say it sort of changed your mindset. It's almost like every race now is a something distance your way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So to put it into context, the difference it makes, my treatment, it's about, even now, it's still, I'm on a half marathon, I'm about 25 to 30 minutes slower than I used to be. Yeah. So it's quite a big difference, and it's more than just, I've aged a few years in that time. There's quite a significant difference. But I just really appreciate being able to run. I'm there when everybody else is looking nervous at the start line of a big race. I am there just grinning from ear to ear because I've made it to the start line of another race, and I'm just so grateful to be there and to be taking part. And in a way, it takes the pressure off, which I know sounds a bit odd, but prior to the back injury and the cancer treatment and everything, I was always going for times. A lot of my running was focused on times. Yes, I loved running for the sake of it, but like everybody else, I was aiming for PBs and always trying to improve. Whereas now I can't get close to those PBs. In my mind, I have my sort of post-cancer PBs, and I try and push myself. But the reality is that it's a bit like snakes and ladders. You have your ups and downs with these things. Progress isn't linear, and just just enjoy the journey that I'm on and being able to give it a go.
No, I think it's a great lesson for anyone who's out there running. And most of the vast majority of us, we like to push PBs and do better each time, but we're not professionals. We're not elite athletes. We're not going to be winning any gold medals for what we're doing. So it's a nice reminder that the most important thing is being able to stand at that start line and run that race, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have in my mind quite often now the mantra that Lucy Gossage, who's the co-founder of 5K Your Way, uses, that to choose to suffer is a privilege.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between running, between the sort of suffering through taking part in running and in endurance events generally versus something like cancer treatment. So and yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely mantra, isn't it? And the races you're choosing to suffer at the moment, we're quite jealous of this, my wife and I, because it's the super halves around Europe, and we really want to do them. So they sound fantastic. Tell people about that.
Yeah, so I kind of ended up doing the super halves almost by accident. So in the summer of 2023, after the Reykjavik half marathon, I tried something new. I tried swim run and things like that. So I'd just tried something different. And then some friends were going to Cardiff to do the half marathon, and I got a last minute entry transferred from somebody in a Facebook group just by chance to go and have a weekend away with the girls. And went and did the Cardiff half marathon. It was only when I signed up to that I realised that Cardiff half is part of this super halves group. And I looked at it and looked, there's these half marathons around Europe.
Yeah.
This could be like my old days of traveling around to do marathons, but it's half marathons, and this seems more achievable to me. Although it's still hard, it seems more achievable. So it really started there almost by accident. So yeah, and I've been traveling around and ticking off the super halves, and enjoying the experience along the way. So Cardiff, Prague, Valencia, Lisbon, Berlin. Those are the 5 that I've done, and I've got a place now for Copenhagen in September to try and finish the series and hopefully earn the giant super halves medal.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and that's a pretty cool group of cities as well to go around and explore too, and to see as you're running around, and I really love that idea of I love the travel and run idea of being able to see new places, and sort of do 2 things you love in one go, I suppose.
Yeah, it's great. It's great excuse for a city break, and it's taken me to places that I didn't have on the list for the last couple of years, and they've all been really, really good races, really interesting cities, and just really, really enjoyed the whole experience so far.
Yeah, well, good luck with Copenhagen. I'm sure you'll
Thank
smash
you.
that, and we can't wait to see you in that with that massive medal of all of them. But in the little bit of time we've got left, I wanted to talk about something else that you do now as well, which is you're not only doing the ambassador stuff, you're not only running all these super halves, you're coaching now as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. That's that's another thing that I've done since my cancer treatment was I qualified as a coach in running fitness with England Athletics, and I volunteer as a coach with Epsom All Sorts, which is a women's running club, and I coach at the weekly track sessions and help with other events, and and supporting our members with whatever they're training for at the time.
Yeah. How welcoming do you think running is? And I know this is probably quite hard because there's different elements of the sport, but how welcoming do you think running is for women in general? Because I think there's probably 1 or 2 issues that still need to be ironed out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no getting away from the safety concerns of running on your own as a woman. It's, you know, there's no doubt there are still issues of women being harassed and assaulted. So running with a group does kind of help, does give you a more safety there. And I think it's also finding time in the day and being able to make time in the day can be a challenge, and a confidence thing. I find more with female athletes than male. Doesn't mean to say that there aren't men who lack confidence in it, but there tends to be more of a confidence issue with women, thinking they can't or they're not going to be fast enough and that sort of thing. And I do see that in the beginners groups, and sometimes when I'm coaching at the track, that the lack of confidence comes into it.
Yeah, and in terms of races, races themselves. Is there more that run directors can do to help women get involved? And I guess I'm kind of thinking, and again, this might depend on the race, but things like, you know, is a proper deferral policy in place if somebody gets pregnant or whatever, or are there the correct number of portaloos on a route or whatever that actually work for women as well? And there's probably a whole host of other ones that I've not thought of.
Yeah, there are a lot more, and there's a lot more now happening. I think there's a lot more awareness of it. So and numbers are increasing. So if you look at like the London Marathon, for example, there's, again, it's I don't think it's quite 50-50, but it's very close now compared to what it used to be. So as the numbers increase, then I think the awareness, and there's more push for races to provide more for women. So whether that be, you know, plenty of toilets, period products in the toilets, all sorts of things, deferment policies to include pregnancy, like you say, all of those things, that they're becoming more of an expectation. And the more, you know, the more the big races do it, but then, you know, it always has that kind of ripple effect, doesn't it?
Do you think women's only groups, I suppose there's a necessity for them at the moment? Is the ultimate aim that perhaps if men get their game together better, there'll be no need for that down the line? I don't know. I'm not even sure I phrased that question properly, but hopefully you got the idea what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's a women's only group. So I've trained in mixed groups, and I obviously I coach the women's only group. It's just got a completely different vibe to it. And I really like that. I really like that there's this bunch of women, all different backgrounds and lifestyles, that would come out, and they have that hour where that's for their run, whether they really want to push it when they've got a big race coming up and they really want, you know, they've got a goal in mind, or whether they just want to come out and make the best of that hour of peace that they've got to go and run. In my experience, it's fun and supportive, and you have a bit of a laugh, but it's a bit more laid back, and there's not as much kind of banter and pressure and things like that. It just has a completely different feel to it than the mixed groups that I experienced before. And I think part of it is that women do relax a bit more when it's, you know, in some cases when women relax more when it's just other women around.
Yeah, sure. I think generally the biggest holdback on running groups, or some running groups, is when people just get a bit, I was going to say competitive. I don't think that's the right phrase, because there's nothing wrong with being competitive, but it's kind of that, I suppose it's kind of that macho competitiveness of showing off, trying to go super fast, and I'm not going to wait around for the inverted commas slower person. And I'm sure there are female runners who are like that, but I think there are more male runners who are like that at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with you based on my experience. That's very similar to what I've experienced, and you just don't really get that in a women's running club. You do push each other on. You know, you see some at the track sometimes. I see some like really good kind of races in training where two runners will just go head to head in the moment, but then they'll stop, they'll laugh about it. There's no kind of bravado around it, and they just enjoy it, and they're just so supportive of each other. And you see in the WhatsApp groups, it's all just supporting each other, and not really, there isn't any of that kind of macho chat, it's so it's got a different vibe. It's really relaxed. I really enjoy it for that.
Yeah. And how good is it to be able to be a coach and help enthuse other people with the love of running that you've always had?
Yeah, I love it. I love volunteering, like I said, and being a coach. There is that joy. I get that joy from seeing other people realize what they can achieve and enjoy their running, and particularly people who are kind of new to running, or they've had something to overcome, or there's a reason why they're kind of pushing themselves or going for it. Or if somebody's just not been running so much, and then it suddenly clicks and they suddenly get what it's about, and what it can do for your mental health, and just the social running and things like that. I love it when somebody suddenly finds that enjoyment in running, and suddenly realizes that's what it's about. That's why I'm there, really.
Yeah, my wife and I have a little running club as well, and I think we find the real joy in, and we'll celebrate everything. But if someone who's a seasoned runner and has always run goes out and does, say, a half marathon PB, we'll be like, yeah, well done, that's brilliant. But it's the person who's never run before and has learned completing their first 5K at Park Run, or getting a PB at the 10K they never thought they'd finish. That's, I think, what really hits home, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, because running changes lives. And it's when somebody gets to that point where their whole lifestyle has changed and they are really enjoying it, that's just really, really great to see. And that's what makes you want to keep turning up, keep coaching, or keep volunteering at parkrun and things like that.
Yeah. So just to finish off, Delaney, I mean, you said there running changes lives. I think running it has always been a part of your life, but it has changed it as well, hasn't it? Running has been essential to you being you, and to continuing to battle through everything that you've gone through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a part of me. The running community has been massively supportive. The friends I've gained through running and through volunteering in the running community, I'm so grateful for. And yeah, to be able to keep running and keep pushing myself one way or another, but just keep enjoying that. I still love it. I've never lost that joy for running, and in fact, I just appreciate it even more. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. Well, it's a lovely place for us to end our chat today. Delaney, thank you so much for joining us here on the Running Tales podcast, part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Good luck in Copenhagen, finishing off those super halves. I'm sure you'll absolutely go and smash it. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today on Running Tales. Folks, if you enjoyed listening to today's edition of the Running Tales podcast, please give the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network a follow, a like, listen to the other shows on it. There's some fantastic shows within the network, as I said. So yeah, whether you're on Spotify or Apple or Deezer or any of these other little podcast places, find the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network if you're not already listening to us on it there. Give us a like, give us a share, give us a nice big positive review, and get more people to come along and listen to some of the fantastic stories that are on this network. And thank you so much for joining Delaney and I today. Hopefully see you soon. Check out Running Tales and Substack, runningtales.substack.com. Thanks all, cheers, and goodbye.